This is the review for the upcoming exam. I'm going to go ahead and explain every single problem, starting with number 1. If CDEF is congruent to KLMN, what are the congruent corresponding parts? We know that there are two different types of parts that we're talking about. We're talking about angles, and it's real easy to list the angles. So we have angle C. We have angle C is congruent with angle K, and I'm just following the statement. C corresponds with K. Angle D is congruent with angle L. Angle E is congruent with angle M. And angle F is congruent with angle N. We have corresponding angles. Now we have corresponding sides. And the way I teach it is by looking at the statement. CD is congruent to KL. So you're going to follow that pattern. So I'm going to write it right here. Segment CD is congruent to segment KL. The next two sides is segment DE is congruent to segment LM. The next side is EF. Segment AEF is congruent to segment MN. And the one that we don't see often, or we don't see it, is CF is congruent to KN. Segment CF is congruent to segment KN. So I'll write it here on the side. Segment CF is congruent to segment KN. In triangle UVW and triangle EFC is congruent. What is a measure of angle CFE? So we're looking for angle F. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write each statement. We know that the two triangles are congruent, so corresponding angles are congruent. Angle U is congruent with angle E. Angle V is congruent with angle F. And angle W is congruent with angle C. So I just have to look at angle V. We don't have angle V, but we do know that 82 plus 51 gives you, 2 plus 1 is 3, so it's 133. And we know that the sum of the angles is 180. So we have 180 minus 133, which gives you 47. So this is actually 47. So angle V is 47. So therefore V corresponds with angle F. So this is also 47. So I answered the question. Suppose that angle C is congruent to angle B. Angle D, I'm going to put two markings, is congruent to angle A. And I know that AE is congruent to segment BE. Segment AE is congruent to segment BE. And CE is congruent to segment DE. Does this prove that the triangles are congruent? I would have to say no. Not enough information. Because even though we have two congruent base angles on each triangle, the sides that are opposite can be different side measurements. So I'm going to say not enough information. So they're not congruent. Number 4, is triangle XYZ congruent to triangle RST? I want to say yes, because of side. The corresponding sides are congruent. Also, the two triangles are congruent because they do have an included side that's congruent, and we have these two angles, these two corresponding angles that are congruent. So the two triangles are congruent because of angle, side, angle, postulate. And the S is the included side. Number 5, what other information do you need to prove triangle GHK congruent to triangle KLG? Well, you know that they do share a side that's congruent. They also have this segment, which is GL, congruent to KH. So the remaining information that you need to prove the two triangles congruent is the included angle. So in this case, the included angle is angle LGK. Has to be congruent, this angle has to be congruent to G angle H K G. So it's actually this angle right here. That's the included angle. Number 6, would you use side, side, side or side angle side to prove the triangle's congruent? If there's not enough information to prove the triangle's congruent by side, side, side or side angle side, write not enough information. So we have this triangle and we have this triangle. So this side is congruent to this side, which we have one marking. And then we have this side, which has two markings. And we have this side that has two markings that are, these opposite sides are congruent. So they do share a middle side. So triangle 1 and triangle 2 are congruent because of side, side, side postulate, which means that the corresponding sides are congruent. And you have to give a reason because the corresponding sides are congruent. Directions. Check which congruent postulate you would use to prove the two triangles congruent. So for number 7, you notice that we have two triangles that are congruent and we have corresponding sides that are congruent. So this will definitely be side, side, side. The others will not be used. Number 8, we have two triangles. They do share this side. This is the included angle, and then they share one side. Definitely not side, side, side. Definitely not angle, angle, side, nor angle, side, angle. So your answer is side, angle, side. Number 9, we have these two triangles. We have the angle, that's the angle, corresponding angle. And then we have the second corresponding angle, and then we have the segment. So definitely not side, side, side. It won't be side, angle, side. It won't be angle, side, angle. It's going to be angle, angle. That means corresponding angle, and corresponding side. Now they do share a side that's the two triangles do share a side, so it will be angle, angle, side, and also side, angle, side. So it's going to be these two. This one will be side, angle, side, and this one will be side, 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 okay? For number 10, we have the two triangles. We have triangle 1 and triangle 2. We do have this marking, which is the included side. And we have two markings here, two markings here. So these angles are congruent, and this angle is congruent. So definitely not side, 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 not side, angle, side. Actually not angle, angle, side. So it's going to be angle, side, angle. Use the information to prove the two triangles congruent. Segment TS is congruent to WV. That is given. Angle S is congruent with angle V. That's also given. Triangle UVW is equilateral. Okay. UV is congruent to VW, which is congruent to WU. So that's because of all the angles that are congruent, so the sides will be congruent. Since all the angles are congruent, then all the sides are congruent. Okay, so what there's, that was given. I apologize. That was given. That was given. That was the second triangle. It says triangle UVW is equilateral. That's by definition of equilateral triangle. Triangle UVW is equal angular, and that's because by definition of equal angular, that means that all the angles are congruent. It says here that angle U is congruent. No, angle V is congruent with angle W. That's given. So now the question is, how do I know that these triangles are congruent? Well, they do share this angle and this angle, so that's a corresponding angle. They have this angle and this angle, that's another corresponding angle. And then they have this side and this side, that's another, that's the included side. So it's going to be because of angle, side, angle, postulate. That's why the two are congruent. Given C is the midpoint, C is the midpoint. We also know that segment AB is perpendicular to BD, so that makes a 90-degree angle. And we know that BD is perpendicular to DE, that makes a 90-degree angle. Remember that these are vertical angles, they're congruent. And we know that by definition of a midpoint, it's gonna cut this segment into two parts. So just by looking at the picture, I already know that these two triangles are going to be congruent because of angle, angle, side, angle. So C is the midpoint of segment BD that was given. Segment AB is congruent to segment BD, and segment BD is congruent to segment DE. Perpendicular, so that's given. BC is congruent to segment CD. That's definition of midpoint. Remember that in midpoint, it's going to cut the segment into two parts. Angle BCA is congruent to angle ECD, vertical angle, definition of vertical angles, right? We know that vertical angles are congruent. Angle ABC is congruent to EDC. How do I know that? Definition of perpendicular lines. We know that if two lines are perpendicular, they form a 90-degree angle. And the last, we have angle ABC is congruent to angle EDC. That's just definition of congruence, since both are 90-degree angles. Both are 90-degree angles. So by the angle, we have the angle, included side, and then angle. So this is congruent. The two triangles are congruent because of the angle, the corresponding angle, the included side, and the corresponding angle, and it's called postulate.